The first level of ego dissolution begins quietly, not with lightning or chaos, but with a soft discomfort that you can't quite explain. Something deep inside you starts whispering, "Is this really who I am?" You've spent years believing in a story. Your name, your roles, your achievements, your habits, your opinions. You repeat it like a mantra. This is me. But lately it doesn't feel entirely real, does it? Before we dive deeper, subscribe to the channel if you've ever felt that strange emptiness, that quiet tug in your chest that says there's something more. Because what you're about to uncover might just change how you see yourself forever. At this first level, life begins to shake your sense of identity. Maybe you lose something that once defined you, a job, a relationship, your sense of purpose. Or maybe one day you just wake up and realize that what used to make you happy now feels hollow. The ego hates this. It panics. It screams. Without these things, who am I? But what's really happening isn't loss. It's awakening. Jung said that when the ego first begins to crack, it's the soul knocking on the door. It's life whispering, "Wake up. You are not the mask you wear." And if that thought moves you, take a moment and subscribe, because this series will take you beyond the mask, step by step, into the core of who you really are. This stage can feel unsettling. You start noticing how often you try to defend your identity, how often you take things personally, how you crave recognition, how easily you feel threatened. You see the ego fighting to survive, to stay in control. And yet in the middle of that struggle, something else begins to awaken. Small moments of peace, brief flashes of stillness, seconds where you simply are, without needing to prove or explain yourself. That's not weakness. That's your true nature showing through the cracks. Jung called this the first step toward individuation, when consciousness begins separating from the false self and reconnecting with the deeper self. It's the start of remembering what you've always been beneath the noise. Awareness, unshaken and infinite. And yes, it's humbling. You start to see how little control you really have, how much of your life has been shaped by fear, by the need to belong. But in that humility, something beautiful happens. You begin to trust truth more than approval, silence more than validation. You begin to feel for the first time that maybe there's nothing wrong with not knowing who you are. Because the moment you stop clinging to the image of me, you begin to glimpse the truth of being. So if you're feeling that shift inside, that subtle awakening, don't stop now. Subscribe, stay with this journey, because the second level will take you even deeper into the unraveling, where the ego's walls start to truly break, and the light of your real self begins to shine through. Take a deep breath. Let the story of you rest for a moment. And let's move into the next level, where awakening starts to take form through the cracks of illusion. The second level of ego dissolution begins when awareness deepens, and the illusion of separation starts to crack. You no longer just question who you are. You start questioning everything. The world that once felt so simple now seems layered with hidden meanings. You begin to notice how your thoughts, emotions, and reactions aren't entirely yours. They've been shaped by conditioning, expectations, and unconscious patterns passed down through time. It's disorienting. It's like looking in a mirror and realizing the reflection doesn't quite match the person you feel inside. But don't click away. This is where the real journey begins. Because what you're feeling right now, this uncertainty, is the ego loosening its grip. If you're still watching, stay with me. The deeper you go, the clearer it gets. And if you're serious about awakening, about truly understanding yourself, hit subscribe and stay connected. What's coming next may just explain something you've always felt, but never had words for. At this level, the ego doesn't go quietly. It fights. It wants to survive because it's terrified of disappearing. You might feel caught between two worlds, want to grow spiritually, but still clinging to old attachments. The mind tries to take control again by forming new identities. I'm spiritual. I'm awakened. I'm different. But these are just subtler masks of the same ego. Carl Jung warned about this trap. He called it the inflation of consciousness. It's when the ego disguises itself as enlightenment. It hides behind humility, pretending it's gone, when it's still very much alive. Emotionally, this level can feel chaotic. Waves of sadness, confusion, or anger may arise without explanation. It's your soul pulling you inward, asking for honesty. Everything false starts surfacing. Your fears, your shadows, your suppressed emotions. Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow, the part of you your ego hides from. If this resonates, if you've ever felt this internal storm, don't run from it. Sit with it. Feel it. It's not punishment. It's purification. And if you want to understand what lies beyond this stage, stay till the end. What comes next is where real transformation begins. Slowly you start realizing that dissolving the ego isn't about destroying anything. It's about integrating what you've denied. The walls between good and bad, light and dark, start to fall away. You stop striving for perfection and begin to see beauty even in your flaws. Pain no longer feels like your enemy. It becomes a messenger. Every emotion points you back to truth. You are not your thoughts, not your story, not your fear. And while you're here, if these words are awakening something in you, make sure to subscribe, because we're just getting started. And the next level will show you what happens when awareness expands beyond identity itself. Relationships begin to shift. You might outgrow people or places that once defined you, not out of resentment, but because your energy no longer matches theirs. You begin to crave depth over approval, honesty over comfort. The ego's need to be liked or validated starts to fade, replaced by something softer, empathy. You see others not as threats or mirrors, but as fellow travelers trying to find their way home. It feels like standing in the middle of a storm where everything you thought was solid starts to shake. But deep inside, a stillness appears. That stillness is you, not the ego, but the self emerging from beneath the noise. And once you glimpse it, you'll never forget it. Stay till the end, because what happens next, the third level, is where your consciousness begins to expand beyond what the mind can imagine. The third level of ego dissolution is where transformation truly begins. By now, the old version of you has started to crumble. The masks that once protected you no longer fit. You've faced your shadows and seen your illusions. But now something even more profound unfolds. The ego's control weakens, and awareness expands far beyond your personal story. You begin to feel life not just as you, but through you. Everything becomes alive, interconnected, and deeply meaningful. Silence becomes your greatest teacher. You stop searching for answers in noise or validation and start discovering them in stillness. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to awaken, to see beyond the mind, don't click away, because what you're about to hear might change how you see everything. And if you haven't already, subscribe. This journey isn't just knowledge, it's an experience. The mind that was once restless and reactive begins to quiet. Thoughts pass like clouds across the sky. You start to observe without judgment. For the first time, you feel the difference between you and your thoughts. You're not the storm, you're the sky that holds it. Carl Jung called this the meeting point between the conscious mind and the self. The ego no longer dominates. It becomes a servant instead of a master. You realize the ego was never evil. It was just scared. It wanted to protect you. But now you see, you don't need protection from life. Your life, during this stage, strange yet beautiful things begin to happen. Time feels slower. Colors seem brighter. You notice synchronicities, moments when life feels perfectly aligned, as if the universe is whispering, you're on the right path. These moments aren't coincidences. They're reflections of your inner harmony showing up in the outer world. If that idea gives you chills, you're not alone. Thousands have felt it before awakening fully. And if you want to go deeper, hit subscribe now so you don't miss what comes after this stage. But beware, the ego is clever. It can try to sneak back in whispering, I'm enlightened now. I understand more than others. That's one of its last tricks, attaching itself to the awakening itself. The only way through is surrender. Real awakening doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is. You start to feel connected to everything and everyone. The boundaries of mine and yours, me and them, dissolve into something vast and peaceful. Compassion flows not as an effort, but as your natural state. You no longer seek love. You become it. And if you're still here, that means something in you is ready. So stay till the end. The next level reveals what lies beyond love, beyond identity, beyond the idea of you. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because what comes next might be the most important realization of your life. The fourth level of ego dissolution feels like stepping into a vast, boundless space, where everything familiar begins to blur. The old self, with all its labels, stories, and memories, suddenly feels too small for what you're becoming. The ego's voice has grown faint now, like a distant echo you can barely hear. And as the noise fades, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to sense that life is not happening to you. It's happening through you. Stay with this thought for a moment, because if you've reached this far, what comes next may change how you see everything. And if you haven't already, subscribe and continue this journey, because we're only halfway to the truth of who you really are. At this level, the need to control outcomes, defend your identity, or prove your worth slowly fades away. You no longer chase the old idea of success or happiness. You find yourself moving with life instead of against it, like a river returning to the ocean. It's peaceful but also strange, because it feels a little like dying while still being alive. You're losing everything you thought you were, only to realize you were never those things at all. Then something profound awakens: surrender. You stop resisting and start trusting. The ego always wanted to be in charge. It demanded plans, explanations, guarantees. But here, you realize something radical. Freedom comes when you stop trying to control what you were never meant to control. If this message stirs something inside you, don't just watch. Subscribe and stay with this channel, because the next level of awakening builds on this surrender. Each step takes you closer to the quiet truth your soul has been waiting to remember. You begin to live moment by moment, allowing life to unfold as it is. Happiness and pain stop feeling like opposites. Both become teachers, pulling you deeper into awareness. Carl Jung described this state as a movement toward wholeness, a merging of light and shadow, conscious and unconscious. You stop rejecting the parts of yourself you once hid from. Instead, you welcome them with compassion. Even your flaws and mistakes stop feeling like enemies. You begin to see them for what they really are: fragments of your soul asking to be loved. The ego wanted to divide and judge, but the self unites and heals. And in that unity, peace arises not as a concept, but as something real, something steady, something you can feel living inside your chest. If you're still watching right now, that's no coincidence. Something in you is ready to wake up to this peace. Don't let it fade. Hit subscribe and keep going, because the deeper we go, the more you'll understand why surrender is not the end, it's the doorway. During this stage, life begins to simplify. You start losing interest in things that once consumed your energy: competition, gossip, endless striving. The world outside grows quieter as your inner stillness deepens. You no longer seek validation. Relationships become lighter, more real. You love without ownership, give without keeping score, and speak without fear. The ego's games just stop being interesting. But here's where it gets mysterious. When the old self dissolves and the new hasn't fully formed, a deep stillness takes over. It can feel like emptiness, like floating in nothingness. But this nothing is sacred. It's a silence where your soul is rewriting itself. The mind calls it loneliness, but the heart knows better. It recognizes it as peace. In this space, you begin to sense the pulse of everything. The same energy breathing through every person, every sound, every atom. This is where you start to feel life as one continuous rhythm. There's no longer an I in you. There's only presence, existence, the flow. If you can feel that truth even a little, it means you're already awakening. And what's coming next will reveal why this feeling of emptiness isn't an ending. It's the beginning of something infinite. So stay until the end. Don't just watch, subscribe now. Because the next level reveals what happens when even the idea of you begins to dissolve, and what remains after the ego completely fades. The sixth level of ego dissolution feels like stepping beyond everything you thought was real, beyond ideas, beyond identity, beyond even time itself. It's where the final layers of illusion begin to melt away, and consciousness enters a vast emptiness that somehow feels completely full. Words fail here. It's not something you can describe. It's something you become. At this level, The I, the one who always wanted to control, to prove, to be someone, begins to disappear. The person you once believed yourself to be dissolves into silence. What remains is pure awareness, untouched, eternal, infinite. You're no longer a wave in the ocean. You are the ocean itself. Stay till the end, because this truth is one most people never even glimpse in a lifetime. You see, the ego's voice doesn't fight anymore. It just fades away. The struggle to be something. The endless inner war between who you are and who you think you should be ends. Time stops feeling like a straight line. Past, present, and future blend into one single timeless now. Jung described this moment as the merging of the small self with the greater self, not destruction, but surrender into something vast and divine. And here's where it gets truly mysterious. Even spiritual identity dissolves. You no longer say, I'm awakened, because there is no I left to make that claim. What remains is pure humility. The deep knowing that existence itself is the only truth. You feel like nothing and everything all at once. You are the sky watching the clouds drift by, the ocean breathing as the waves rise and fall. Don't stop watching now, because what comes next will change how you see life forever. At this level, peace no longer depends on circumstances. You could be surrounded by noise, conflict, or even loss. And yet inside you are completely still. It feels like the universe is breathing you, holding you, loving you without condition. Death stops being something to fear because you no longer see yourself as a body or even mind. You see yourself as awareness, and awareness cannot die. You might appear ordinary on the outside, simple, calm, even quiet, but within everything has changed. You don't chase happiness anymore. You are happiness. You don't search for love. You become love. You act not from ego but from presence. You find beauty in a single drop of rain, in a quiet breeze, in the stillness between two heartbeats. And if you're still here, listening, feeling this, then something deep inside you already knows this truth. You felt it before. That quiet moment where everything stops and you just are. This level of realization is not an ending. It's a return to what you've always been, to what Carl Jung called wholeness. The illusion of separation fades completely. There's no longer you and God, you and others, or you and the world. There's only oneness, the stillness, the awareness, the love that was always there, quietly waiting beneath the noise of the mind. So if this touched something in you, don't click away yet. Subscribe, stay connected, and keep walking this path of awakening with me. Because the seventh and final level will open your heart in ways words cannot describe. The seventh level of ego dissolution is not an ending. It's a return to the source of everything you've ever been and everything you'll ever be. It's where the journey dissolves into silence. And yet, from that silence, something eternal begins again. All illusions of individuality fade away, and what remains is pure awareness, awake, infinite, and unchanging. There's no observer left, no self to define, no boundary between inner and outer. Everything, your thoughts, your breath, the sky, the stars, melts into one seamless field of existence. Stay till the end, because this final truth is not something you learn. It's something you remember. At this level, there's no more you seeking answers. The seeker has vanished, and what's left is the truth itself. The one who longed to awaken finally realizes it was never separate to begin with. The veil lifts, and behind it, you see the vast stillness that has been there all along. Time loses meaning. Life is no longer a path to walk, but a presence to embody. Jung called this the realization of the self, the moment when human and divine become one. It's not something you achieve. It's something you surrender into. The mind stops asking, who am I? Because there's no one left to ask. There's only being, radiant, infinite, whole. If this moment stirs something in your soul, take a deep breath and subscribe to the channel. Stay with me, because what comes next is not an explanation. It's an experience. Here, even the concept of ego dissolution dissolves. There's no ego left to release, no identity left to transcend. Everything that once appeared as opposites, light and dark, joy and sorrow, right and wrong, merge into a single dance of perfection. You begin to see that nothing was ever broken. Every mistake, every tear, every longing was simply the universe remembering itself through you. Love, at this stage, is no longer a feeling. It's your essence. Compassion flows naturally because there's no other left to forgive or fix. You see yourself in every face, every sound, every breath. The stars no longer feel distant. They feel like your reflection. And while the world might still see you as ordinary, inside you, there's only stillness, only vastness. You are not living in the universe anymore. You are the universe awake to itself. Life moves through you effortlessly as love in motion. The fear of death disappears because you no longer end where the body ends. You are the space in which everything arises and returns. The journey through ego is complete. What remains is the infinite ocean of consciousness, silent, aware, eternal. You return to what you always were, the timeless witness, the presence behind every heartbeat. If you followed this journey through all 7 levels and something within you feels lighter, clearer, or quietly alive, don't let it fade. Hit the subscribe button right now, stay connected, and keep exploring these deep truths with me. Because awakening isn't the end. It's the beginning of living as who you truly are. And if this message resonated, share it. Someone out there may be standing at the edge of their own awakening, waiting to remember.